Hello, dear friends, fellow Master Gardeners, and 2020 interns. Coming in about 2 months, the interns will earn their first Texas badge. We welcome you with open arms in fulfilling your requirements in such a difficult year. We celebrate your certification. This will be our last virtual meeting for 2020. We will have the first one in 2021 in February, which will allow the new board to become acclimated to their new roles. And now for announcements. Transition will happen starting now with each old board member giving the new board member an orientation to their roles. We know that questions will continue. They have nothing to worry about. We will always be available to help. Regarding the scholarship program, the Dallas County Master Gardener Association will annually award a $2,500 non-renewable scholarship to a college sophomore, junior, senior, or graduate student from Dallas County. Award monies will be sent directly to the winner's academic institution. The scholarship is not available to incoming freshmen. The applicant's major should be in the field of horticulture or related fields. The application has been developed, in which is filled out and provided to the DCMGA by March 2021. Scholarship winners will be notified by May 1st. Funds will be awarded when the DCMGA receives documentation of the recipient's next scheduled semester. The 2021 budget was approved at the November board meeting. It provides the means for projects and administrative costs to be allocated by the new board members. We appreciate the help from all the project leaders to provide the vital documentation as stipulated by the Budget Committee. A list of wholesale discounted nurseries and growers is being developed as led by Cynthia and Mark Jones with assistance from Margaret Marshall and Sandra Ferris. This will provide a means for the project leaders' buying power within the budgets for plant and soil materials. We have just started, but we will have ongoing information as we determine selection of vendors who will be able to buy and a process for purchasing requisition. Stay tuned for more information as we progress. The next DCMG monthly meeting will be February 25th, 2021. This is a huge shout out to the fundraising efforts in the past few months. Thank you to Fern Brown and all the Master Gardener crafters. A special shout out to Sandy Means Bannon for developing the sign-up genius for the beautiful pictures of all the items and an easy pay system. Also to the Rowlett Road and Raincatcher's team for selling jelly and the time it took to make all the jelly. And the importance of the pansy plant sale was extraordinary by the Raincatcher's garden team. What all of these people did was to take a step into the unknown and find a way to safely develop a way to fundraise. We can do anything if we have the willpower to change. Think out of the box, which I know is a cliche, but it is true for this year and to come. As you can see in the picture, a beautiful memorial stone is dedicated to Karen Tomlinson, located at Geneva Heights Elementary School. After Karen's death, the family requested that donations be sent to the Dallas County Master Gardener Association. They stipulated that all funds go to the Master Gardener projects at Dallas ISD elementary schools. The schools are Geneva Heights, Anne Frank, Lakewood, and Lipscomb. The schools received an equal portion of the funds to be used in befitting to Karen's love of teaching gardening to children. Please remember the coronavirus cases are increasing. We must take extra care to protect all of our citizens until a vaccine is reality. Please follow the guidelines without equivocation. It is everyone's responsibility to help, whether we are at our projects or at the grocery store. And now for the project spotlight. We are spotlighting the Master Gardener's Garden in the Texas Discovery Gardens, or as we call it, TDG. TDG is located in Dallas's Fair Park, which is one of the most important sites in the city where the public can learn about horticulture. Opened in 1936 as the Hall of Horticulture for the Texas Centennial Exposition, the 7.5-acre campus includes the first public conservatory built in the southwestern United States. TDG is the second oldest botanical institution in Texas and the first in Dallas to offer botanical education programs for children. TDG was certified as the first 100% organic public garden in the state of Texas in 2003. The Rosine Smith Butterfly House and Insectarium opened in 2009. Dallas County Master Gardeners have been a part of TDG's success for many years. In 2011, Alan Reister, Janet K. Smith, and others established a demonstration garden on 1/3 of an acre adjacent to the Butterfly House. Many of the TDG's 100,000 visitors now pass through the garden each year. The goal has always been to demonstrate a landscape garden the public can enjoy that is focused on Texas native plants, adapted species, and varieties recommended by the Texas Superstar and Earthkind programs of the Texas AgriLife Extension Service. The garden includes many pollinators and nectar plants and is a certified monarch way station. Master gardeners maintain the demo garden, weeding, dividing, planting, and pruning perennials, and planting annuals for seasonal color. They also educate those walking through the garden with signs that identify plants by their common and scientific names and instruct in basic Earthkind gardening principles. In 2017, Master Gardeners also helped create an educational video that explains the history of the demo garden and how to create a garden from the ground up using Earthkind principles. This video you can see is on the resources section of the DCMGA website. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension designated the demo garden at TDG as a research, education, and demonstration project in 2019. Trees surrounding the garden have grown and Master Gardeners are now researching and increasingly featuring attractive plants that thrive in shade as a demonstration to homeowners with similar challenges. The demo garden helps TDG provide a place where children and adults discover and learn to sustain the natural world. Hopefully, every visitor leaves with a desire and knowledge to emulate sustainable practices at home. This is to all Master Gardeners and especially the current board of officers and directors. As we always say, we can never thank you enough. You have given your time and knowledge to the Master Gardener program. We have found a purpose in the program that fulfills our desire to educate the community and sustain the environment. It is a worthy cause. Each of us have received a Texas badge from the beginning of being certified and through each 5th, 10th, 20th, and some 25th anniversaries that renews our commitment to the Master Gardener mission. Let us be proud of a badge that has meaning to us all. Our presentation today is about pollinator conservation. Pollinator conservation is at the forefront of the pollinator conversation. Our speaker is Brent Johnson, who attended Texas A&M University, earning a bachelor's in wildlife and fisheries sciences, and later a master's degree in interdisciplinary studies from Texas Tech University. He has also worked for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department as an urban wildlife biologist. Brett is the Senior Environmental Coordinator and Urban Biologist for the City of Dallas. He will lead us through the Dallas Park and Recreations Department, who is actively modifying the park management practices to encourage bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. This includes utilizing community scientists to inventory species, increasing wildflower areas, wildlife corridor expansion, prairie restoration, reduced chemical usage, and outreach. Hope you enjoy it. Sounds like a wonderful presentation. You will enjoy the pictures and videos following the presentation. The pictures on the screen are at Raincatcher's Garden of Midway Hills on a beautiful fall day. Sarah Sanders and Jackie James are out under the trees selling plants and jelly. At this time, I want to thank Beth Saunier, Second Vice President, who finds our amazing speakers for all the virtual meetings this year. Also to Jessica Krusiger, who is the video editor and takes all the pieces, the PowerPoint and presentation recordings, and puts them together with the videos and pictures sent in by the Master Gardeners. I am so grateful to have been a part of turning a difficult situation this year into showcasing the Master Gardener program and area speakers. You take care and stay safe.
Hello, my name is Brett Johnson. I'm the Senior Environmental Coordinator / Urban Biologist for the Dallas Park and Recreation Department for the City of Dallas. And today I'm here to talk to you about pollinator management in Dallas parks. As we go through the presentation, we'll go over what are Dallas parks. We'll go over our monitoring through BioBlitz events, our pollinator conservation practices, and our prairie management. As far as our Dallas parks go, I need everybody to understand the city of Dallas itself has 1.3 million residents spread out over parts of 5 counties, with principally being in Dallas County. Across those areas, we have 389 park properties, totaling 23,250 acres, making us one of the largest park systems in the entire country. These parks range in size from 1/10 of an acre to over 3,000 acres, with an average of about 49.2 acres. Throughout the city of Dallas, we have a high diversity of demographics. So we have a high diversity of stakeholders that we have to deal with within the park system. But really, what I want to drive home and talk about today is the underrated ecological diversity found in the city of Dallas. A very quick biogeography lesson of Dallas. In northeast Dallas along White Rock Creek, we have a series of prairie units, and in southeast Dallas we have a couple of more smaller prairie units that we'll talk about later. Running smack through the middle of the city, we have the Trinity River bottoms, and in southwest Dallas we have the escarpment. This area is important because the escarpment is ecologically more similar to what you would find in the hill country than what you would typically find in the rest of north central Texas. To manage anything, we have to have a general baseline understanding of what is out there. We don't have a big budget to do a lot of formal biological surveys, so we use BioBlitz events. These are a lot of fun. We use our BioBlitz events as a nature-based outreach effort. We use it to get a baseline inventory of what is in our parks. In any given year, we have 500 plus volunteers or community scientists that will be involved in our BioBlitz events. So we get a lot of volunteer involvement. But the big one for me professionally is we get a lot of interagency cooperation, especially with Texas Parks and Wildlife. And by 2019, our community scientists and the iNaturalist app had recorded almost 76,000 observations. Now, if I updated this presentation immediately before doing this, I would tell you that we now have over 100,000 observations in iNaturalist. But let's break that down a little bit. Now, when I say filtered all-time plants in Dallas, when I say filtered, that means I've taken out all the observations that have not been identified yet and have narrowed it down to those observations that are research grade or verifiable. And our community scientists, over those years, and there's been 1,207 of them, they have made observations of over 17,000 plants in Dallas. And that accounts for over 900 species. And I'm taking out all the cultivated plant species. These are wild species or invasive species that are out there. Since we are talking about pollinators, and monarchs in particular get a lot of press with our pollinators, let's look at our milkweeds. Our community scientists have recorded over 500 observations of milkweeds in Dallas, covering 15 species. Now, I do need to take just a second and explain. The reality is we have 6, sometimes 7, depending on how you look at it, species of milkweed that have been found in Dallas, but there are a lot of associated species like milk vines that also get included here. So we're talking about the butterflies, bees, and everything else. So let's talk about butterflies and moths. In 7,760 observations, our community scientists have recorded over 500 species of butterflies and moths in the city limits of Dallas. What about bees? Well, when we talk about our bees and our wasps, we've got 862 observations, and they've accounted for 38 species. Now, right off the bat, I love seeing these bumblebees here. And the bumblebees are good because they are some of our most efficient pollinators because, well, they're large and they can carry a ton of pollen at one time. But I also want to briefly mention the western honeybee that's on there. Please keep in mind, yes, they are critical for agriculture. However, they were brought in to help with agriculture. They are not native to North America. Our native ecosystem is not actually adapted to honeybees. They certainly don't necessarily hurt anything, except they do provide a lot of competition for our 400 plus species of native bees that can be found in Texas. So we try to keep them, we try to help them as much as possible, but keep in mind they are not a native species. In beetles, we've got 1,568 observations of beetles through 2019, accounting for 234 species. But I've got a note down there of why. Why do you think I'm specifically interested in beetles? Well, the reason I'm interested in beetles is beetles actually account for almost 85% of all pollination that goes on with insects. And the main reason is because it's such a large class of insects. And because of that, they do an incredible amount of pollination to a wide variety of plants. But let's just look at what does an average year look like in iNaturalist with our BioBlitzes and just biological monitoring. From August 28th of 2018 to August 28th of 2019, our community scientists, just over 1,000 of them, collected almost 17,000 observations and collected almost 1,800 species in the city of Dallas. Think about that. Would you have ever imagined there were almost 1,800 different species of plants, animals, and insects running around in the city limits of Dallas in 2020? That's one of the big messages I want everybody, if you get nothing else from today, please note, we do actually have a lot of diversity in Dallas, and a lot of it goes back to that we've got prairies, we've got the riparian areas along the creeks in the river, and we have the escarpment zone. What about just in 3 days? Well, in 2019, we participated with Texas Parks and Wildlife in the City Nature Challenge. In just 3 days, our community scientists collected almost 4,000 observations and 700 species in just 4 days. And a not quite as well publicized event, but still did really good, was the Nrpa Parks for Pollinator effort. This was part of a larger nationwide effort by the National Recreation and Park Associations that was trying to get a feel for pollinators and encourage pollinator conservation across the nation. And the city of Dallas was actually kind of on the forefront of that, in that we helped provide the technical guidance related to these bio blitzes. And during that time period, our volunteers collected over 1,200 observations and again counted for just over 400 species. Let's get a little bit more localized. Let's talk about the White Rock Creek watershed. And this runs roughly from Royal down the White Rock Creek to I-30, or from Harry S. Moss Park down to Samuel Grand. Most of that through there, especially in the riparian zone, is park property. We have just over 11,000 observations that have been made in there, and out of those 11,000 observations, we have over 1,100 species that have been found just in that riparian corridor. What about just the plants in the White Rock Creek corridor? Our community scientists have recorded 468 different species through there. How about just Harry S. Moss Park? Our volunteers have collected 431 observations and have recorded 133 verifiable research grade species at Harry S. Moss Park. And that's literally just mostly on our 23-acre prairie remnant that's up there. But let's get some more of the nuts and bolts. Pollinator conservation is one of the major focuses of conservation efforts throughout the United States right now. To that end, the City of Dallas is signed on as part of the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and has been since at least 2016, I know, when I came on with the city. And we've made great headway on our status with the Monarch Pledge. Our big picture goal with pollinator conservation in Dallas is the creation of 2 pollinator patch corridors, one running down the east side of Dallas and one running down the west side of Dallas. This will be achieved through the use of Pollinator Gardens, our wildflower areas, Prairie Restoration efforts, and outreach. Within the Parks Department, we are also more fully implementing our IPM, our integrated pest management practices, to reduce our overall chemical usage within the park system. As far as our pollinator gardens go, in the last few years we've installed 16 monarch way stations throughout the city of Dallas. These are driven by both city staff and community volunteer efforts. Our ultimate goal when we started in 2016 was to have 1 garden in each maintenance district, and there's 6 maintenance districts. So obviously with 16 we've gone over that, and we're looking to add more. If your group or you individually would like to work with us on establishing a monarch way station or a pollinator garden, please get with me and we can see what we can do. Our ultimate goal with any of our pollinator gardens is that at a minimum it needs to be certifiable as a monarch way station, which just basically means it's in the end it's 100 square feet, has at least 4 nectar plants and at least one of the milkweed species in there. And that's pretty easy to do around here. A large portion of this, starting in 2016, was kind of kick-started in a partnership with Texas Discovery Gardens, who had gotten a grant with the National Fish and Wildlife Federation. One of those 16 is the Mayor's Pollinator Garden at City Hall. And I just kind of like to joke about this a little bit. You don't get me in a suit very often, and I really do have a neck. You just can't tell it in that photo. See, got a neck. This is one of those. We would love to have more help on it. The North Texas Master Naturalists help with us on this garden as they can, but we're always looking for more help. I think the Master Gardeners would be a very good partner to help on some of these pollinator gardens. This is one at Crawford Memorial Park. This is actually one of my favorite pollinator gardens. This one is down there just off Elam, and this is a large pollinator garden. It's got a lot of Turk's cap in it, and a lot of Turk's cap. Really amazing. It's got some autumn sage, and it's got about 15 different varieties of plants in here that are very friendly to pollinators and really good for monarchs. If you go in there in the spring, the number of bumblebees hitting this pollinator garden is amazing. Now our wildflower areas. Now our wildflower areas are separate from our prairie areas. And across the entire city of Dallas, we have approximately 137 wildflower areas that cover about 97 acres. In other words, we've got very roughly 97 football fields worth of wildflower areas spread out across the city. Our goal for going from 2019 into 2020 was to expand that by about another 27 acres. Unfortunately, COVID happened and we weren't able to achieve that. I think we got an additional 11 acres on there. So we have over 100 acres of wildflower areas. Now, why these are different than our prairie areas? A lot of these are inside or immediately adjacent to residential areas, are very highly visible. They serve a couple of purposes. They help with our pollinator conservation goals. They help with our water conservation goals, especially with water quality. And but one of the big ones for us is it also cuts down on our total mowing that we have to do basically March through about usually mid-June. Typically, depending on the district, they start the prep on the wildflower areas anywhere between October and February. Usually the earlier we start, like in October and November, the better the results. Generally, they're going to start blooming by the end of March and will be usually in full bloom by at least mid-April. And our ultimate goal is to try to maintain the flowers until they go to seed. Now, what I need everybody to understand here, I try to give the district staff quite a bit of leeway and management on these because, like I said, they are immediately adjacent to residential areas, and people either, to be blunt, they love them or hate them, and it almost purely depends on the amount of grass that's popping up in them. So, what I mean by that, we typically leave them in place until we start hitting an ambient air temperature of about 85 degrees. That is the kind of the threshold of when Johnson grass takes off. So when there's still a lot of diverse colors in the wildflower areas, we go ahead and try to maintain it. As soon as the area starts to get dominated by grass and we start getting complaints, then we may go ahead and mow it. If we get to the point where it starts to dry out and the diversity of color is, we're down to basically it's all Mexican hat now at this point and dried out Mexican hat, we may go ahead and look at mowing it at that time. So typically that will get us to somewhere around mid-June. Some changes that we are looking at coming into 2021 is we do have a selective treatment that we are looking at for Johnson grass, and really, if we can control the Johnson grass on the wildflower areas, we can allow them to last or stay in place longer. We're also looking at trying to increase our fall blooming plants. We would like to try to get that up to about a third of our total wildflower areas. So call it about 33 acres fall blooming plants we're kind of looking at. But flexibility. This one I want to point out this photo right here. This was a classic example of why I like to leave as much flexibility as possible on these wildflower areas. This is one of our larger wildflower areas. It's located at White Rock Lake near Poppy Lane on the east side of the lake. In 2018, this area did not, about a week before I shot this photo, this area did not look good. In fact, Friday I'd actually given them permission to go ahead and mow it. All of the other wildflower areas had already gone to bloom and already gone to seed. For some odd reason, this area just didn't. And that happens. We have variance every year. But Friday afternoon we got a rainstorm and they couldn't get in there and mow it. And by the time we came in on Monday, apparently everything bloomed Sunday and Monday morning. Because that happened, we were able to hold off, and we actually managed to hold this area almost until mid-July, which is kind of unheard of for us, but it was pretty amazing for us. And again, this is why I try to give the district staff as much flexibility as possible to maintain these areas. But most of our pollinator conservation efforts are through our prairie restoration. The blackland prairie, as you may know, is considered to be an endangered ecosystem. In North America, or specifically to Texas, we had over 15 million acres of blackland prairie, and we're down to about 5,000 acres now. Within the Dallas Park system, we have approximately 200 acres of blackland prairie that are spread out over 16 different units. These prairie areas are critical to our patch corridor that we're going to talk about later. Currently, we're working on 162 acres at White Rock Lake, 23 acres at Harry S. Moss Park, and an additional 21 acres down at Crawford Memorial Park. In May of 2016, I brought in what we call the PAT, or the Prairie Assessment Team. As y'all can probably imagine, the politics surrounding White Rock Lake get pretty intense sometimes. So I wanted to make sure we brought in some outside experts to assist with our prairie management. So I brought in 4 non-city prairie and plant community experts. These were individuals from Texas Parks and Wildlife, the Fort Worth Nature Center, LELA, and Texas Nature Conservancy. We went around to all 16 remnants at the time around White Rock Lake, and it was determined that only 14 out of the 16 areas were actually considered to be prairie. What we came out of that with was we came out with a rating for all 14 units. And if you look on the right hand side, you'll see a map that some areas are in green, yellow, and red around the lake. The areas that are in green are excellent. Probably our best prairie unit is near Loop 12 and Mockingbird on Boy Scout Hill, and there's a really good prairie unit at Nrpa behind the tennis court. But probably the biggest surprise, or the most interest to us, was at Flagpole Hill. We discovered that we have about 2 acres, somewhere between 2 and 3 acres, of a globally rare plant community. We have an eastern gamma grass gilgai community. This is even more special than just our standard blackland prairie. This is, again, a globally rare plant community. Currently, at White Rock Lake, we have fully started our rotational mowing. You don't want to mow at the exact same time every year. If you do, you'll start to push the plant community in one direction and lose your overall plant diversity. So the only mowing that we do systematically about the same time every year is we will mow around July 4th, 2 weeks to either side of that, and that is to help manage fire concerns. We started our Adopt a Prairie program where volunteers are manually removing invasive species. A recent addendum to that is we are now able to get it to where volunteers can use line trimmers like weed eaters to kind of go after the Johnson grass. It hasn't been perfect, but it gives us another tool to work with. We continue to work with our outreach efforts around the lake in particular, and we're starting to increase our outreach efforts down at Crawford Memorial Park. These include native plants and prairie days and our BioBlitz events. Up at Harry S. Moss, we have a beautification agreement with a volunteer named Mark Bullock. It is a unique agreement in that he's allowed to use heavy equipment, aka a tractor, on that restoration effort, and because of that, restoration efforts is fairly far along compared to some of the stuff at White Rock Lake. That got kick-started with the assistance from Texas Discovery Gardens with that National Fish and Wildlife Federation grant money. This is just an example of some of the projects we've had going on. This was an Eagle Scout project behind the reservations office at Flagpole Hill. The Eagle Scout went in and manually removed approximately a football field size area of Queen Anne's lace. Unfortunately, it's a pretty plant that a lot of people really like, but it's highly invasive. It's fairly labor intensive to remove it, but when the soil is kind of moist, it pulls out real nice. But we now know it takes about 15 to 30 man hours per month to yank it if you really want to get control over it. So it's a very volunteer, very kind of manual labor intensive effort. Other efforts we've had is like at Lakewood Park. This was rated as one of our poor prairie units. Anytime we do any major restoration or any major management objective, for wildlife purposes, we try to keep it to about a third of the total area and below. In this case, we were doing a reseeding and seed ball effort, and so this area is about 2.1 acres. So we did about 0.7 acres where the staff went in, mowed it really short. This was in December, so everything's fairly dormant. And a really neat idea that our equipment operator came up with was to go in and run our athletic field aerator through the area, and it would punch little, not even half-inch deep holes all through there. And so you don't want to cover these prairie seeds with much soil at all. You basically just really want seed to soil contact. But this allowed us to drop the seed balls in, or some of our larger seeds, and start to, and it's really helped kickstart this area. If you go out to Lakewood, we are quickly approaching a moderate status on this prairie unit, and we're very excited about that. This is up at Harry S. Moss. This area has a lot of diversity, but when we started in 2016, it was very heavily, there was a lot of woody encroachment here. And initially we were looking at 5 to 10 years of Eagle Scout projects and similar volunteer efforts to remove the heavy brush encroachment that was on that prairie area. Through the work of our volunteer and with the assistance of Texas Discovery Gardens and that grant, we were able to rent a forestry mulcher. And in the course of 2 days, we were able to remove a lot of that heavy brush encroachment. You'll see in the background, that's the actual equipment in use at the time. We went through and marked off any trees that were 6 inches in diameter and larger and left them alone. And went through and removed anything that was smaller than that, and we ground it down into a very coarse mulch so to help with erosion that could pop up after that kind of treatment. But you can see it's very coarse, very thick, and will not wash off. Then we went through and reseeded the area, and the North Texas Master Naturalist had a big project in October of 2018 and went in and put rootstock or plugs in to help kind of kickstart everything. And this area has been coming along very nicely. We've been working with our volunteers now on collecting data on our top 10 plants. The top 10 plants are good indicators of our prairie health and status around White Rock Lake that we're now including into Harry S. Moss and Crawford. These were the top 10 plants that I asked the prairie assessment team of, hey, if you go into an area sight unseen, what are the top 10 plants you'll be looking for to determine whether this is a prairie or not? And that includes things like little blue stem, yellow Indian grass. It's the species you see over there, foxglove, over here on the right-hand side of your screen. Like I said, the volunteers through the Adopt a Prairie program have been manually removing invasives. This past year, they started also using line trimmers. They've been working on seed collection and seed dispersal, collecting on some of our excellent sites like Boy Scout Hill, and taking them to areas like Lakewood that needed just a little bit of a boost. Right now, we've got 5 areas that have been adopted. We'd love to adopt some more out. And right now, we're working heavily on Crawford Memorial Park on defining an area and developing a good partnership down there in southeast Dallas. We've talked about the Adopt a Prairie program quite a bit already. But the main 3 I want everybody to see, because they're our most active groups, are the Lakewood Trails Neighborhood Association, the Blackland chapter of the Native Prairies Association of Texas, and the Peninsula's Neighborhood Association that takes care of the area near the bathhouse. Crawford Memorial Park. This is pretty awesome. Through the 1960s, this area was known as being one of the top bird watching areas in all of North Texas. And then it kind of fell off everybody's radar. As we were prepping for the City Nature Challenge in 2017, we were just trying to find new areas to send volunteers. And we just happened to notice this open area on an aerial photo. Even the park staff really hadn't been into this area. So we went in, looked around, and other than some minor brush encroachment that we've already taken care of with a couple of Eagle Scout projects and a little bit of Johnson grass, this is probably our best grassland area in Dallas. And we're currently working with the North Texas Master Naturalist and several other groups to see what we can do about getting a good partnership down there and get that adopted. But in the big picture, our ultimate goal is the creation of 2 pollinator patch corridors running through Dallas. On the east side, outlined in red, we've got a good start on that already. Like I said, the Parks Department manages a number of properties through there, and between our Prairie Restorations, our wildflower areas, and our Pollinator Gardens, we've got quite a bit out there for our pollinators now, and we're very proud of that. Slowly but surely, we're getting some things done over here on the west side. We've done a 6.5 acre grassland restoration or establishment at LB Houston. We're working on some stuff down at Mountain Creek Lake Park. And we're trying to figure out some stuff in between. That one's slowly but surely coming together. But in the end, outreach is critical to this entire effort. And it's one of the reasons why I agreed to come and put together this video for y'all tonight. And I hope y'all get some good stuff out of it. But we work a lot on our outreach, both internally and externally. I will talk to almost any citizens group, but internally we do presentations for the Quality of Life Committee for City Council, and for the Dallas Park Board. Annually we update them on our environmental initiatives, many of which are related to pollinator conservation. Internally, we have worked on our Dallas habitat training, and that's where we went through, especially with our maintenance staff and trained staff, to have their eyes open for red flags of, hey, do we really need to mow this right now, or can we wait on taking down this tree? And they now know if there's any question, contact me, and we'll take it from there. And prairie management. We do prairie talks locally, and we've taken the prairie talks all the way up to doing it for national audiences. And so we've gotten a lot of good feedback on it, and I would If y'all have any other groups outside of the Master Gardeners that you would like to do a presentation for, I've got about 60 different topics I speak on and would love to come and talk to you. Or do a presentation during the COVID issue. Today we talked about the Dallas parks, we talked about our pollinator conservation efforts, and I hope you'll learn a few things of some of the good practices we're trying to put in place in the Dallas Parks Department, or Dallas Park and Recreation Department to be absolutely correct. If you have any further questions for me, please shoot me an email at urbanbiologist@dallascityhall.com.
Hi, my name is Lois Diggs. I am a Master Gardener from 2012. The reason I became a Master Gardener is probably what a lot of people will say is I was killing everything in my yard. I was originally from Charlottesville, Virginia, and that is more like the piney woods, so I put azaleas, dogwoods, you name it, and they all died. I also didn't understand about the concept of sun. Too much sun here in Texas will fry everything. So I took the class, and at the beginning of the class I was informed there was a school who needed some help, and it was my local elementary school that my kids went to. So I have been helping at Moss Haven Farm since the beginning, and what I have done is taken on the prairie. We have brought back the Blackland Prairie. That's why I'm standing here with switchgrass. We have all of the different large tall grass prairies, short grass prairies, wildflowers, you name it. And that is my passion, is to share with everyone. You can bring out a little bit of grass and put it in your yard, or just how to grow vegetables, herbs, you name it. You get bit by the bug and you become crazy, and that's what I am. Thanks.
Good morning, my name is Judy Gore, and I've been a Master Gardener since 2015. The year that I retired was the year that I joined, because I love gardening. I've gardened my entire life. And I work at Moss Haven most of the time because I enjoy working with the kids in this beautiful garden.
My name's Janice. I became a Master Gardener in 2006, and I joined because of the camaraderie, and I enjoy working in the yard and thought this would be a good way to meet people and enjoy what I do.
I'm Mary Teasley, Master Gardener. I became a Master Gardener in 2016. I retired from nursing in 2015 and decided I needed to do something to do with my time, and I love gardening. And so I went to class and enjoy working in the garden.
Hi, I'm Patty. I'm Master Gardener from the class of 2012. I love being a Master Gardener because, number one, when we went to class, we learned so much about plants and insects and management of pesticides. We were taught by Texas A&M AgriLife professors, and I love being at any project, but this particular one I'm at has chickens, which was just an added bonus, and I have a little bit of knowledge of chickens from my grandparents. So anyway, it all came full circle for me, and I love plants and learning about them and teaching children or adults.
Hi, I'm Maureen, and I have been a Master Gardener since 2018. And the reason why I became a Master Gardener was when I moved to Texas from Colorado and Nebraska. I realized the first time I went out to plant a plant and couldn't even get my shovel into the soil that I was in a different world. And I proceeded to still go ahead and plant like as if I was in the Midwest, and I killed everything. So I found out about a Master Gardener school and decided I needed to go so I could figure out what to do here in Texas.
Hello everyone, my name is Daryl. I am a Master Gardener. I've been a Master Gardener since officially my graduation was January of this year, 2020. So kind of been on that path. Took a year in that process, but I made it. And the reason why I became a Master Gardener is because I started an organization about 5 years called Unified Hands, and in that time I wanted to understand how to garden, because there are a lot of food deserts in Dallas and throughout the country, and I wanted to come up with solutions to help eliminate food deserts. So what better way to become a master gardener, to understand more about gardening. You know, as the saying goes, practice what you preach. So that's why I did it. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm a Master Gardener, Jennifer, and I've been a Master Gardener. This is my 10th year, and I love Moss Haven Farm because there's always something to do, and there's always cheerful people here that help you do it. Today, I'm harvesting seeds off of Marjoram, and what I'll do is cut them and put them in this bin, and then you just kind of shake them, and what you end up with is all the seeds you'll ever need down in the bottom of the bin.
Hi, my name is Mary, and I decided to become a Master Gardener in the year 2013, the year before Moss Haven Farms was established, because I grew up in the country and we always had summer vegetables, and they were so delicious and healthy, and not knowing at the time that I would meet such like-minded people who care about their health, other people, and to take care of our earth in a wise and safe way. Thank you so much.
My name is Linda Mandeville, and I'm a Dallas County Master Gardener, and I'm standing out in the gardens that are so beautiful here at Geneva Heights. Today we're going to talk about wildflowers. Now, I'll bet that you know the famous wildflower in Texas. Bluebonnet, that's right, that's our state flower. Well, did you know though, that's only one of many wildflowers. In Texas, we have over 5,000 wildflowers. Yes, that's a lot of wildflowers, isn't it? Well, wildflowers are beautiful. We know that. You can look around at our garden and see these cosmos that are still blooming. They're just beautiful, but wildflowers also provide shelter and food for our beneficial insects. Also, they are a great source of nectar for butterflies. And you know, in your gardens, you have so many butterflies. I wish one would fly by right now. Well, October is the month to scatter wildflower seeds. So I want to talk to you about seeds for a little bit. Now, not all wildflower seeds look the same, so I'm going to show you a picture of some and actually show you some seeds. Now, we were just talking about bluebonnets, so I'm going to put a few bluebonnet seeds in my hand, and as you'll see, they're small, they're very hard, kind of like a little rock. That's what the seeds look like. And then, of course, I know you've seen bluebonnets. This is a picture of what bluebonnets look like. Another wildflower that we have is called a green thread. And the reason it is called a green thread is because the stems look like little green threads. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of a big meadow, and this is what the flowers look like. If you're driving along the highway and you see these out in a field somewhere, it is absolutely beautiful. Okay, next I want to show you poppy seeds. Now, this is really kind of neat. I want you to look at this first. This is from your garden from last year. This is a pod of what was a poppy. That's the neat thing about wildflowers.
So that came out of this garden here?
Yes, this came out of the garden at Geneva Heights.
Now, when did it come out? What month would that come?
In the summer, they dry up. After they've bloomed, they start to dry and dry and dry. And this is very dry. And when you shake it, you can hear the seeds inside. Now, I'm going to show you what happens. So watch really carefully. I'm going to crush this in my hand. And when I do, you can see the little black seeds.
Those are tiny.
That popped out. That's right. The poppy seeds are tiny, tiny. And let me show you. I have a whole group of them right here. Can you see how tiny those are?
How many do you think are there?
Oh man, I don't know. I wouldn't want to count those. But you could probably guess, boys and girls, if you'd like to. Now let me compare what the seeds look like. Let me get out. You see the poppy seeds, right?
Yes.
All right. This is bluebonnet seeds, our little rocks. And then here are some green threads. So do you see how different they are? Yeah. And these poppies are tiny little seeds, but you know what? Poppies are big flowers. And green threads are just kind of a normal size, but their flowers are small. They're beautiful, but they're small. And then of course our bluebonnets grow on kind of a stem, and they have flowers all the way up. So you can't tell by the size of the seed what size the flower will be.
Do you have a picture of the poppy?
I do. I've got a picture of these big poppies. And I want you to see, these are the red poppies, but do you see the white one?
Yes.
In the top? Poppies come in red, white, pink, all colors. And they are just beautiful when they're growing out in a field. Okay, so let's talk about what we would need to do to grow wildflowers. Did you notice that earlier I didn't say October's the time to plant? I used the word scatter. That's how you do wildflower seeds. Wildflower seeds do not want to be planted in the ground. They want to be scattered. They like to lie on top of the soil. Now, with something like a poppy seed, you saw how tiny it was, right? Mm-hmm. Well, a poppy seed you would have to get very close and just sort of almost sprinkle the seeds on the ground, because if you didn't, the wind might just blow them away. Okay, that's one thing that the seeds need. They need to lie on top of the soil.
Okay.
Another thing that wildflower seeds need, they need a suitable location, which means the location that would be perfect for them. With wildflowers, that means sun. You've got to pick a sunny location. And here at Geneva Heights, we've got two perfect beds. This is our monarch bed, and on the other side is our swallowtail bed. And I know you've seen the swallowtail butterflies and you've seen the caterpillars climb up the side of the gem. So you're very familiar with that. So we need soil, they need to lie on top of the soil, we need sun, and I bet you could guess the third thing, water. You were right, water. We're hoping that we get some really good fall rain, some really good spring rain, but the master gardeners water up here, so we would be happy to help out with this watering process. Now, I'm going to walk over to one of our beds, and I want to just show you, well, let me tell you something else about wildflower seeds first, because I've got several things to show you in this bed. When all of these conditions are right, the soil, the sun, and the water, those seeds are going to turn into little plants. That's called germination. They germinate. The seed turns into a little plant. They turn into a seedling. And a seedling is a little plant. So that's some really good words for you to remember. Germinate and seedling. And I want to show you how we would go about scattering or perhaps tossing, very gentle toss, these seeds. So follow me over to the garden and let me show you how I would do it. Now, anytime we walk into these gardens, there are stepping stones, as you can see, that go throughout the garden. So I've got to be very careful to step over the edging, and I'm going to step very carefully and stay on these stones. And there's a really good reason why right now. If you will follow me down and look at this little plant, which is called a seedling. I don't want to step on that little seedling. And this is actually a bluebonnet that germinated from the seeds last year. The seeds fell off last year and we already have a plant. So if I was going to plant or scatter a bluebonnet seed, can you see that seed right there on my finger?
Yes.
All I would need to do is just drop it on the ground and it's good. And the same thing with a green thread. So now we're ready to do some poppy seeds. Remember how tiny they were, and we can scatter them on the ground, but what if I'd like to get some poppies over by this fence and I need to toss them a little bit? Well, remember, the wind will take them off. So let me show you what I would do. I would step on two stones and then very gently, I'm going to toss them out. And I've scattered wildflower seeds. And I'm going to very easily walk out of this bed, and there you go.
So would you water it in today, or would you go ahead and wait a few days for rain?
Well,
what happens if it doesn't get watered right away?
Well, and it does need to be watered in today. And I looked at the forecast before I came up here, and unfortunately, I don't see any rain in the forecast. So I'm going to water those seeds in today because I'd like to make sure they get a little head start. Okay, so while we're talking about seeds, remember I showed you the pod from the poppies. I want to show you some other seeds on our cosmos. The neat thing about wildflowers is they produce their own seeds, and those seeds fall to the ground, which means hopefully they'll germinate, remember that word, and we will have more flowers. Now the cosmos that you see right here beside me, we don't plant seeds ever on those cosmos, and I want to show you why. These are gorgeous flowers, right? But I want you to look at here's the pretty flower, and here's what happens when it starts to dry up. And then look at this, these are all seeds. See how they come off in my hand? And these seeds fall to the ground, and we have cosmos all over these two butterfly beds. And right now we've got some little bees flying around, but Lisa and I have been standing here watching a monarch butterfly. It's camera shy. It's not showing up for us, but the monarchs love cosmos. So this is a very established plant. We've got little seedlings that are very, very small. And
so there's the seedling, and this guy's established.
Very established and loaded with all kinds of seeds. That's what cosmos seeds look like. So we have talked so long about wildflowers and seeds. I'm thinking you might like to actually scatter some seeds this year. So I've made little packets for all of your teachers full of different wildflower seeds. Now different classes will have different seeds, but you're going to do the same seeds that I have. Some of you will have bluebonnets, some of you will have green threads, and some of you will have the poppy seeds. Just remember, on the poppies, if you want to toss it, you need to do it very gently so the wind doesn't take it off.
You don't want growing in the middle of the playground. We want it growing where the birds and butterflies
keep it in the butterfly gardens. So I hope you've enjoyed coming out to the garden with me and learning about wildflowers and wildflower seeds. And I hope that you will enjoy coming out to the garden at your school and scattering some seeds. And I will tell you, those bees and those butterflies are going to thank you very much. One other thing, let me tell you before we go, and that is whenever you've been out in a garden, it's very important to wash your hands afterwards. Even if you're not digging in the dirt, you're just handling wildflower seeds, we always want to be very careful to wash our hands when we go back inside. So I've enjoyed spending this time with you boys and girls, and I'm hoping that I will actually see you out in the garden sometime soon. Bye.
Datura. It's also called nightshades. It is a member of the nightshades, and it's also called angel trumpet. This plant is poisonous, and all parts of the plant are poisonous, and it has been known to be a hallucinogen in some Native American tribes, and also down in some of the Mexican culture. So the blooms here open up in the morning and at dusk, and is the host plant to the hawk moth. And since moths fly at night, that explains why they chose, or they have a symbiotic relationship with the plant. After the bloom, there is a thorny seed pod here, and when the seed pod turns brown, it will start to crack, and then several seeds will come out of that, and it can become a little bit invasive at that point if you don't control the seed population. So again, this is the Datura, angel trumpet, and it's a member of the nightshade family. Thank you.